Apologies for that. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the executive meeting this evening, Thursday, the 14th of May. Just before we move into the formal agenda and the minutes, I've been asked to point out that someone is video recording the meeting this evening. Mr. Walter is standing over in the corner. I don't know if there's any other formality rather than making people aware of that. But I've given permission for that to take place. And also, I understand it's the case that the 3 of the papers from the Property Disposal Committee at 5 o'clock were adjourned to be considered at this meeting. So I will be placing them, as people might be waiting to see those. We'll deal with those first. I think that would be appropriate. So I'll be putting those between items 3 and 4 on the main agenda. So that having been said, we turn to the formal agenda for the executive meeting. The first item, the minutes. I'll simply ask if everyone is happy with the minutes that have been circulated. Have a second of those. You don't have to take a name vote on this, but is everyone in favour and happy with them? Thank you. Actually, as a further point of information, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, we of course have had a vote at full council since we last met, requiring us to take a named vote on substantive matters. So that will be a new practice for this committee. I will try and do that properly and appropriately, but obviously, as we do it at full council now for most matters, I'll be going around the room on substantive matters rather than asking for a simple show of hands. So just in case anyone had forgotten that's taken place. Second item on the agenda, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations in relation to the main agenda or indeed the matters referred up to the Property Disposal Committee? Councillor Stubbings.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare an interest in item 2 of those that have been deferred from the Property Disposals Committee, and I will be leaving the room for the discussion in relation to that.
Thank you very much. Any other declarations? Councillor Smart.
I would also like to declare personal interest in item 2. I'm not removing from the agenda as I own the business within them.
Thank you. Any others? Doesn't look like it.
Chair, I think
Chair.
in that to avoid any confusion, I think I'm going to declare perhaps an interest in the Adult Social Care and Community Wellbeing. I can't see an obvious conflict there, but I'm going to declare there is a possibility. Personally, it's not a picking there.
Thank you very much. That takes us then to public question time. I have 2 written questions, which I should go through first. The first one, I think in order of receipt, was from Mr. Richard Hart of Whippingham. Is Mr. Hart present to ask his question? If you'd like to step forward to the microphone and ask a question, thank you.
Please can the Chairman confirm?
So if you press the button, you should get a little red light somewhere. There we are.
I'll say the whole thing. Please can the Chairman confirm that Stuart Ashley, Area Director, IW for Children's Services, has complete authority, including full decision-making powers, to deal with all litigation and legal matters relating to child protection, including fostering, adoption and special guardianship cases, without referring to any other other officer of the Council, or Hampshire County Council, or any elected member of the Isle of Wight Council.
Thank you. There's a longest answer to try and give the full position, which I'll go through as follows. The area director, Isle of Wight Area Director for Children's Services is authorised by the Director of Children's Services for the Isle of Wight Council to undertake a range of matters, either generally through a scheme of delegation that operates throughout Children's Services, or in relation to individual matters where the Director of Children's Services asks him to do so. The statutory guidance on the roles and responsibilities of the Director of Children's Services and the lead member for Children's Services, published by the Department of Education for local authorities in April 2013, sets out the legislative basis for the role and the responsibilities of the DCS, that is the Director of Children's Services. The guidance is clear that within this legal framework it is for the individual local authority to determine their own organisational structure and delegations in the light of their local circumstances. The guidance also confirms that it is legally permissible for 2 or more local authorities to appoint a single joint DCS to cover children's services responsibilities across all the local authority areas concerned. Isle of Wight Council have entered into a strategic partnership agreement with Hampshire County Council, whereby Hampshire take operational responsibility for the delivery of children's services, which includes the sharing of a DCS. It will be appreciated that the DCS in any arrangement would not be able to personally deal with or take decisions in the broad range of matters that he has professional responsibility for, and it is therefore both appropriate and necessary for him to delegate to others. Is there any follow-up question?
No, thank you, Chairman. That's a very full answer. I was expecting a simple yes or no, but thank you for your full answer.
Thank you. The second question is from Reverend Val Harts, also of Whippingham. Again, is yes, I see. Please ask your question.
Thank you. When I met with Councillor Richard Priest, the then portfolio holder for Children's Services, in November 2013, to discuss the failures in children's services, I was categorically assured that the failures were not due to resources, but instead a product of the prevailing culture. In the table entitled Staffing Levels on page 8 of Appendix 1 of Paper D, on the Executive Agenda for the 14th of May 2015, there is a column headed Affordable Establishment. Although council taxpayers have been told that children's services are supposedly improving, these figures show that children's services are being rationed by affordability, by resources. Could the leader please advise what the true establishment figures are? By that I mean the number of social workers that are needed and required to effectively meet the demand for child protection without rationing, so that the targets in this document are fully met.
Thank you. The answer is as follows. The phrase affordable establishment is the guideline for managers as to how many staff there should be in position within their team. There is significant evidence of the last 2 years to demonstrate that where there are increased demands for service, we have exceeded affordable establishment to ensure that those demands can be met. Is there any follow-up question?
Yes. Could you tell me why there are 20% of vacancies then?
Well, I can always say that it is very difficult to recruit into these areas, but for a more detailed response, I can send you a written response in due course, having taken some advice from Stuart Ashley.
Thank you very much.
That concludes the written questions that I have received. I don't think there are written questions from any other members. Are there any? Are there any oral questions from other members of the public present? I'll take that as a no in that case. I've just been asked, because Councillor Stevens has just been able to join us, hot foot from London, so thank you, Ian. We dealt with declarations of interest before you were able to enter the room. I've been asked by Mrs. Miles whether you do have any declaration of interest to make before we proceed with the meeting. No? Thank you very much. Just for Councillor Stevens' information, we are moving now, instead of going on with the main executive agenda, to the remainder of the agenda for the Property Disposal and Capital Programme Subcommittee. 3 items from that committee, as I think you're probably aware, Councillor Stevens, were adjourned to this meeting, and I think they're the items listed in that paper. Item under number 4, numbers 2, 3 and 4. Councillor Stubbings is leaving the room for the first of those, number 2. And Councillor Stevens, can I ask if you're able to present that paper?
I can do if you need it.
Or, sorry, Councillor Hill.
Thank you. Well, we could either of us
I'm
do.
Going to fight, I'll do it.
Okay, this paper seeks approval to grant a 23-year lease for Dudley Road, Shore Road, Pound Lane and Market Street car parks in Ventnor Town Council, and for the Isle of Wight Council to enter into a management agreement with the Town Council for these car parks. The outcome, if approved, will allow Ventnor Town Council to recommend and determine the pricing structure for these car parks. It will, however, allow the Isle of Wight Council to maintain the levels of income derived from these car parks through lease payments. Now, there's quite a lot of obviously pros and cons. This administration is quite committed to the idea of localism, and so obviously the recommendation that comes with this paper is very much dictated by that. What I am concerned about is the fact that this decision will come before the conclusions of the parking strategy, and as such we will have no future control as to the future of the fate of these car parks. Although I know there will be a clause within the lease which says that we can obviously bring them back in with 6 months' notice should we wish to develop the car parks. So obviously this has come about following a community rights challenge from the Town Council to take on the car parks. There is obviously a risk that other towns and parishes will wish to follow suit. This is obviously the first time we will have done this, and it's very much a trial, if you like. I think we must make this decision in light of the fact that we are committed to completing a parking strategy, and obviously if any other town and parishes do come forward with a similar request, we must be mindful that those will probably be best considered following the outcomes of the parking strategy. And so I can tell you the recommendation is to approve option 1, which is granting a 23-year release and a management agreement to Ventnor Town Council on the terms identified in section 5 of this report.
Thank you. Is there a second to that? Councillor Stevens? And do any members wish to make comment?
Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Jordan?
For clarity, I think I have been asked why it's a 23-year lease and not 25. I've been given the answer, but I wonder whether other members, public and other members here might like to understand why it's a 23-year lease instead of 25. So, yeah, I'll ask them to explain.
Thank you for that. The reason it was 23 years was so that it expires at the same time as the PFI contract, because the PFI contractors are responsible for maintaining the blacktop surface, so it's to make sure that it coincides with that.
Thank you. I think there are no other comments from members. We have a very packed agenda this evening, so I will attempt where I can to bring in those other members who have been kind enough to attend this evening, but I would ask members to only come in where necessary, given the fact that we're going to have a fairly long evening, I suspect. So, Councillor Whitby-Smith, I think you have a point.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to get confirmation that the town and parish councils will also be able to take advantage of leasing the car parks in their areas during the public consultation period of the car parking strategy. Is that confirmed for all? From the point of view of Ryde, it is most important they have the opportunity so to do.
Councillor Hillard, would you like to respond?
Thank you. I did try and deal with this point in my summing up of my report. It's my opinion, sorry, that no other town and parishes should be able to take control of their car parks before the car parking strategy is complete. Otherwise it undermines that process and it would be for nothing. I think we need to wait until the car parking strategy is completed, that we have the recommendations from that, and then we'll be able to obviously make individual decisions based on the information from that report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart, you indicated, and then Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a question built on a comment that Councillor Hillard made. Did you say that there's a 6-month clause built in that should, for example, the strategy take the whole car parking in a different direction, you can withdraw from the lease with the vendor, is that correct?
Right, the 6-month break clause is specific to wanting to develop on car parks, not just for any reason. Obviously, this council has a housing strategy, and where we obviously have identified a need for extra social housing. It may become apparent within the next few months or years that obviously we're looking for land to build social housing on. Obviously, where we know those car parks are effectively surplus to requirements, which is obviously they have very little income, which is why we're happy to transfer them into local control. But we may consider that we can get more social benefit from obviously building on the purpose of that break clause.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Barry.
Why is vendor getting preferential treatment?
I think the answer is that they asked, but Councillor Hillard can elucidate.
I did try and explain this as well. When the town council put in a community right to challenge for their car parks, and that was prior to the start of the parking strategy piece of work. As far as I'm aware, Ventnor Town Council are the only ones who have done that. Freshwater did consider it, obviously the Miller Place car park, but that never went beyond the initial discussion. So, as the Chair said, Ventnor are pretty much the only ones who have asked. We're considering this to be a test case, and obviously any others must be considered following the completion of the parking strategy.
Thank you. I think we've been around all questions and comments. So we have the option or recommendation of paragraph 30 of the report. It has been seconded. There's my piece of paper. I can't remember it. So if we're ready to go to the vote, and we will try out our new procedure. So can I ask you to indicate when I call your name? Firstly, Councillor Fuller.
For.
Councillor Hillard.
For.
Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor Smart.
Abstain.
Councillor Stevens. For. Councillor Stubbings is out of the room. That leaves me, and I am in favour. So I then have to call her. Well-oiled machine this is. We have 5 in favour and 1 abstention. Thank you. If Councillor Stubbings could come back in, because I think he's going to take the next meeting. Thank you. Councillor Stubbings, if you could therefore take the next item, which is the Eagle House and Plattsburgh Road.
Certainly, Chair, more than happy to. This paper seeks executive approval for the allocation of capital to invest in the partial remodelling of Westridge in order to accommodate the transfer of some of our staff from 2 other properties, or from one other property which is currently in quite considerable use, which would result in a fairly significant savings to the council over a 10-year period of £586,000. My view, Chair, is that in the current situation that we're in with regard to reducing staff, we need to consolidate our resources in this regard and our assets in terms of the holdings that we have in terms of properties clearly fall into that category. This looks to me to be a sensible proposal on the part of the council to allocate capital funding of £215,000, which would allow the relocation of these services to Westbridge, and as I've already said, generating net revenue savings of £42,400 per annum, and a capital receipt potentially of something like £200,000 from the disposal of the 2 properties. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbings. Do you want to just clarify the recommendation?
Certainly, it's pretty much as I've just said, that we take recommendation, which is option 1, to allocate the funding which would enable the relocation, generating net revenue savings of £42,400 per annum and a capital receipt of £200,000 from the disposal of the 2 properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies if I was making you repeat it. Councillor Smart has seconded that. Are there any comments or questions from members around the table? There don't appear to be, so if that is the case, we can go straight to the vote. So I will ask again. Councillor Fuller. For. Councillor Hillard.
For.
Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor Smart.
For.
Councillor Stevens.
For.
Councillor Stubbings.
For.
And I am in favour as well. So that is 7 in favour, and that is passed. Thank you. The remaining paper adjourned from the earlier committee is the cliff lift paper. Councillor Stubbings, do you wish to answer this?
Chair, with your permission, I would prefer not to bring this paper forward because of historic reasons of my involvement in that.
In that case, I'm more than happy.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. My appreciation to you.
I'm sorry? So it's because you weren't here earlier, Ian, we didn't have a chance to. It has got your name on it, so please, if you'd like to.
It's on, carry on.
Well, I'll call him in due course, don't worry. I think this is an issue that is well known. There's been a lot of public comment, public interest, and indeed public debate, which I've been present at some of. And we have the paper in front of us. If I summarise essentially the situation, we've known for a while that the lift has been deteriorating, and things were on course to deal with this at the end of this year's season. However, the usual pre-opening inspection just before Easter this year revealed very much unexpected deterioration, and as we all know, that necessitated the closure of the bridge, which was unable to be used, and therefore, of necessity, the lift also closed as well. As I say, there's been much comment and indeed some accusation about this matter and how we came to be in this position, which I'm not going to address at this juncture. Those who are here in this chamber on Tuesday evening will know that the Scrutiny Committee is setting up a task and finish group to look into this matter in historical terms. But our main concern this evening is obviously to deal with the situation we're in and the unexpected position we've been placed in of the lift not being accessible at the moment, and also the fact that we simply can't wait until the end of the season to do something about it. So the report before us is to push forward with the replacement of the bridge and the works to the lift mechanism, and option 2 is outlined, which I'm sure members are familiar with, to that end. In the meantime, and maybe Mr. Metcalfe will be able to add a little comment on this as he did on Tuesday evening. Paragraph 13 notes that what we're doing, seeking to do, is to enable the lift to be used for as much of this season as possible. Steps are already underway for a temporary bridge to be put in place. And I think we can say it's more advanced than the paper suggests, as things are going on day by day. This paper was put together a wee while ago. So the idea, perhaps John, I can ask you to comment, but in essence is to see if we can get that temporary structure in place, certainly for the school holidays. Perhaps if I hand over to you at this point.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We have identified the temporary bridge supplier. We are working, we commissioned some consulting engineers who are at the moment working out how we can connect the temporary bridge to both the lift shaft and the cliff. The intention is that they'll work together and have that in, all being well, by the start of school holidays, as you've outlined. We're doing it in a phased approach, so we'll be working out how we can make a connection, how we can get the bridge in, and how we can then take the old one out. So everything will kind of work in sequence. So that's very much the plan we're working to, and unless we find anything that's completely unexpected as a part of those engineering works, we would certainly hope to have the temporary bridge in for the summer period. The advantage that will give us is it may well be that we could retain the temporary bridge for the next summer period as well, if we include some significant detailed design work for the permanent fix. So we know we'll have something in place, definitely. And the contract for the motors and the refurbishment of the motor room, we've already been out to tender for that once before, so it's a very simple job to retender that piece of work. Chairman, while I have a microphone, could I just point out one thing? In the recommendation, there is a typographical error. It should say the same as option 2 earlier in your paper, but for some reason we've managed to get the numbers wrong. So the final line should read that we require an allocation of £75,094 capital funding in 2015-16. We've got 58,000, which I think is in the previous draft.
Thank you very much. So therefore, I think I've said all that I would. The recommendation, to be clear, is that we proceed with the motor room works and replacement of the link bridge in late 2015, early 2016, at an estimated cost of £758,094. This will be funded utilising, the 683,000 LTP funding, but will require an allocation of £75,094 capital funding in the 2015-16 season. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Fuller, and are there any comments or questions?
Chairman, I was going to ask a question. I was raising my hand for that, but I'm very happy to second it. One of the things, having read through the paper, that I'd like to ask, are the local members, the Town Council and local Hotel Association being kept fully updated as to progress? Because I think this is fairly fluid, and I think the more information we can share with those organisations and individuals, the better it is for them.
Well, I would certainly comment from my part that I've been to a number of public meetings, and I believe that is being recorded with. I don't know if Mr. Metcalfe would care to add if there's been any further contact beyond those public sessions and the comments in the press.
There hasn't been, Chairman. We were waiting for the outcome of this evening's meeting before we advised everybody calling.
Thank you. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair, because I was one of the two members, yourself included, that was at scrutiny, and I just could point out that the councillor for Shankling is the lead member on the scrutiny for the task and finish of the process that was mentioned earlier.
Councillor Stevens.
Thank you. It's very important. I think that the more dialogue we have with the hoteliers and the tourist traders and retailers within the Shankland area, the better. Look at the paper and it says 80,000 plus people use that lift in 14, 15, I think it was. Can you assure at this time that I note there's a Sun-Vector shuttle bus or a bus service between the seaside and the Esplanade up to the top of the lift, that is still going to go ahead in the early part of the season to make sure that we have that continuity.
That's certainly something I've been requesting. I believe Mr. Metcalfe can probably confirm that.
Yes, Chairman, I can. It wouldn't normally start until the middle of June. We've arranged with some vectors for us to start with the Whitsun holidays, and we will underwrite the costs for the 3 weeks prior from Whitsun holidays until the time we would normally have started operation. So it will start with Whitsun holidays and then run through the season.
It's imperative that we give that support to our Shanklin tourism. I think that's I can't impress on members and indeed officers enough that we need to make sure that we give every support to our Shanklin colleagues in that respect. And I welcome this, and as I said, it's a way forward, and if we can utilise it for 2 seasons, then so much better. Thank you.
Yes, I think there's very great concern about this in Shanklin. As I said, I attended a public meeting. It was actually in Shanklin Theatre, and pretty much the whole of the stalls were full of people wanting to hear what was going on. But fortunately, the promises, undertakings that were given at that meeting, is we're following through in this paper. So I don't think I think people have been informed throughout, and the fact that we are concerned about this and recognise the importance has been shown. I have Councillor Stubbings who wants to comment, and then Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. I know that we requested in para 28 of this report that there's a proposal to reallocate 683,000 of local transport plan funding to cover the majority of this work. I wonder if we could get some idea from officers what local transport plan funding would typically be spent on were it not being reallocated to this project. Thank you, Chair.
Chairman, you've got the paper coming forward on the executive, which allocates the rest of the funding around local transport plan. But effectively, it's a number of schemes that might be road improvements, junction improvements, and across the sort of network integrity activity that we've been talking to our roads about. And we have got quite a long list of that. So I think it's probably about 100 items on that list at the moment. So effectively, we are diverting that money from road type of transport schemes to a different type of transport scheme. But yes, there have been sort of schemes that we will be deferring until the next LTP allocation.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. That was exactly my question also. But I wonder if Mr. Metcalfe could, that was interesting earlier, whether he could express, this is the first time I've heard that we may be using a temporary bridge for a second year. It's led me into wondering why, in view of the scrutiny, asking a task and finish group to look at this, why we're rushed right now to make a decision before the scrutiny panel report back, if we're actually considering not only this summer but next summer for a temporary bridge.
Sure. Part of the bulk of the cost is in the replacement of motors, so that's a substantial cost. We need to place our order and get on and do those works, get the order as quickly as possible so the motors can be refurbished for the start of the next season. The issue on the bridge is that no point refurbishing the motors if the bridge hasn't been fixed. I think I was really referring to the fact that if we have a temporary bridge, we might be able to look to developing something that's perhaps more robust in the future in that seaside location, so we don't get to these similar problems in the future. So we might, for example, develop a composite type bridge, working with some of the island's best composite companies, and we can almost showcase some of the skills that we have on the island. The use of the temporary structure just gives us that option, but I wouldn't want to stop any of the works on the basis of the fact that we might put a temporary bridge in place. We need to have a bridge in place. We need to have the money put aside so we can ordered a new bridge, whatever, a fixed bridge, whatever it needs to be, and whatever it's going to be like. All I'm really saying is if there's a long delivery time on that new bridge, because we choose to do a composite bridge, then we still have the capacity to use the temporary bridge next year. The important thing is to get the motors fixed.
Thank you. Yes, I think what essentially you're saying we've got a long stop safety option just in case. And as far as the scrutiny point is concerned, I don't know, Councillor Stewart, I will ask to come in a moment, but essentially what they're looking at is the history of the matter, and I don't think that necessarily should affect actually restoring the use of the lift this season as soon as practically possible. I will come to you in a moment, Councillor Stewart. I have Councillor Stubbings and Councillor Stevens indicated.
Thank you very much, Chair. In the light of Mr Metcalfe's response to my query, I would just like to bring forward some concerns that I have received from some members across the Chamber and in our own group in regard to some of the projects which may well be deferred because of this money being reallocated to this project, specifically in relation to zebra crossings, that some of which have been waiting for several years. I have slight concerns that perhaps by rushing into a decision on the non-bridge, I feel very comfortable about the fact that we need to ensure that there is a bridge in place to make sure that this lift is working for this year. I would be slightly concerned about us moving forward with the rest of this project before consulting with other members more fully and giving them an understanding of what projects in their own local areas might well be affected. That seems to me to be something that perhaps it might be something worth us doing.
Councillor Stevens?
I think we should look at the first line of the proposals from our scrutiny colleagues. The report should be considered by the executive. Now, it doesn't say that we should make a decision. I'm about to make a decision and say get on with it, because tourism is part of the lifeblood of this island. If we don't fully move forward on it, then we're going to walk between two stools here. So I'd like when Councillor Stewart comes forward in a moment to speak, he elaborates on that point A of the recommendations from his committee. The other thing, as I say, is from my point of view, I want to get on with it, because traders, retailers and the tourism trade need this. I mean, it's part of the lifeblood of Shanklin and the Bay Area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. I'd like to think that what you just set out very clearly there was implicit in what I was saying when introducing the paper. If I ask Councillor Stewart now, if you'd like to add to points as requested.
Thank you, Chair. So the issue was considered at scrutiny. It was clearly split into two elements. The first element was looking forward, what are we going to do, how are we going to get the bridge done, so the lift is in action. And that was quite clearly, from the scrutiny point of view, totally the right decision. Interesting to note, went by Councillor Jordan, because the second part that we're going to do, and to answer the question that Councillor Fuller raised, the lead member for the Task and Finish Group is the board member. I was with Councillor Bacon at the meeting that the public attended, and there is no doubt they're fully briefed up to this point, because they were able to ask a lot of questions which I thought we answered very well. In relation to the historic information, the whole object of that Task and Finish Group is to learn the lessons, to make recommendations which could possibly affect future work on the bridge. I accept that. I think that's why Councillor George made a good point. But the task is designed to be completed by the team within 2 months, so we should have information fairly quickly. It's minimal effect on the council officer time, because the board member has undertaken to do it himself with the relevant papers. So I thought we'd take that offer up and let them get on and do it. So that will come forward. I can only echo what I said. I echo what you say. I think the bridge has got to be sorted out. This is a very good paper, clearly defined out, and the school had no difficulty with it at all.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. I think we'll have one remaining question from Councillor Smart, and I think we should go to the vote.
It's not a question, it's just a comment. It was always envisaged within thinking that in fact the work on the motor room would in fact be done. The problem arose when of course there were problems with the bridge.
And I think Mr Metcalfe would like to add one further point.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. If I may, I would just want to point out to members that the risk in any delay may mean that we're not able to let a contract for the refurbishment of the motor room and the lift car was in sufficient time to get the work done for the next season. And we may end up with a similar position we're in now with the bridge, with the lift cars and the motor room. So I fully understand why Councillor Stubbins and Councillor Jordan would take that point of view, but I do think there is a risk that in delay that we may not get that contract in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Metcalfe. I think it's appropriate to go to the vote now, so our now established practice. Councillor Fuller.
In favour.
Councillor Hillard.
For.
Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor Smart.
For.
Councillor Stevens. For. Councillor Stubbins. For. And myself, I'm for. I really need to see that. That's 7 in favour, so that is passed. Thank you very much. That concludes the adjourned items from the Property Disposal and Capital Programme Subcommittee, so we can now return to the main agenda for this evening. And we have as item 4 3 papers under my name. Bear with me a second. So yes, paper B first of all, quarterly performance and finance report. Which you'll find at D1. Sorry, you won't find a D1, you'll find a C1. No, you won't, you'll find a B1, which is in the presentation of the papers. It's been a long week. So, yes, I do actually have the right paper in front of me that everyone else has been looking at for the last 5 minutes. So the report we have before us at B1 sets out the 4th quarter results of the Council's performance together with risk and its financial position in relation to the Council's priorities for the quarter ended 31st of March 2015. It's also, you will note from the contents, the first report of this nature that relates to the revised corporate plan which was approved on the 1st of April. And as such, you'll see that the performance measures are now against 4 items rather than 7. And those are the 4 items set out in paragraph 2 of the report. The transition, it may be easier to follow, those not so familiar with the changeover. The diagram in paragraph 9 is perhaps of interest, which shows how the previous 7 priorities have translated into the new 4 priorities. I will ask members for the relevant service areas to comment if and as they see fit in a moment. I, of course, will draw attention to the children, keeping children safe and improving their education criterion, because you will see a change of colour there in part. There was comment in the last quarter when the keeping children safe criterion, as it then was, changed from red to amber, following the Ofsted report, which was produced last November, and there's more of that coming in the paper I will introduce shortly. And we now, on the face of it very pleasingly, see the education measure, albeit as part of a combined measure, moving to amber, or education within the combined measure now appearing as amber. I think it's appropriate to highlight paragraph 12 of the report, which outlines why that is so. Steps forward are being taken in the education of children on this island, and so even were the measures not being combined, I think it would be appropriate for the red to disappear and amber to appear against education attainment. I don't think it's appropriate to assert that that has only happened because the way we're assessing these measures has changed. We of course have a particular point to note that we now have no secondary schools in any form of Ofsted category, and I think that's something that is of great note and something that those officers have been working hard to support those schools need to have the work they've been putting in recognised in that regard. So I think rather than myself going through the remainder of the measures, I do think in any event that I want to have attention drawn to it. I will ask members, before going to recommendation, I'll ask fellow executive members around the table if they wish to comment or highlight on any other aspects of the paper and the performance measures.
Thank you, Chair. You'll appreciate that I'm delighted to report that health and social care remains in green in terms of the key performance indicators that we work with. However, I would like to express a slight concern, as I have previously, in regard to the grey areas in terms of no data available for some of the KPIs that we use. I'm going to be asking Mr. Elliott and his team potentially to have a look at reviewing some of the KPIs that we actually use in the measurement of our performance in adult social care, in order perhaps to make this more relevant and for us to perhaps remove some of the grey area from this. But other than that, Chair, I only have to report that I remain delighted with the work that the diminishing team in that area are doing in the face of significant demand, and I'm very grateful to them for continuing to do such a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbings. Yes, I think it's appropriate to say that all of us are concerned where grey areas appear, where data appears to be lacking or difficult to gather, as it does affect the standing of these measures, and there are, in addition to your area, in other areas as well, I'm fully aware, as indeed we all are, it's always necessary to consider are the appropriate measures or the sufficiently measurable appropriate measures being looked at to give us this performance data. I think that's something we can say is constantly under review. I don't see any other members indicating to speak, but Mr. Elliott, you've been highlighted, so please do comment.
Thank you, Chair. Just a note of explanation really. The large grey areas on the social care ones are, which I explained on Tuesday, was due to the changing timescale of the reporting mechanism, so they don't actually relate back to last year. These are the new measures that came in with the Care Act from the 1st of April, and we haven't started to measure those yet. So it's a bit of an anomaly that they actually show up at the end of quarter four. It's to do with the way the reports formatted, I'm afraid. So they are in a positive position. We haven't actually started measuring those to any degree yet. Or we're beginning to, but obviously won't.
Thank you for that clarification, that's very helpful. Yeah, I was just going to see if there are any other executive members who wanted to comment before turning to Councillor Stewart. Councillor Stewart, you remember what I said a bit earlier, we have got your comments from Tuesday evening on the sheet in front of us, which I think we've all taken account of. If you wish to add to those, though, please do address us.
Don't wish to add to them. The comment on item A is slightly aside from the main thrust of the project you've discussed. The outcome on B is we're looking to the weighting and how that's actually come about, because actually when we actually drill down into some of the figures and the red, ambers and greens, to the lay person it didn't seem clear as to how they were put in officers, and they're going to come back to me on that. And as a result of this paper, and particularly relevant to this paper, we're going to set up a standing committee on budget so that we can actually look at budget issues, which obviously would become a member of this. The council overbridge is not exactly in now, but it sits on a lot of priorities, and it was just highlighting the fact that we wanted to know what had happened, those with the funding, and particularly the solar local enterprise partnership. That is contained in the paper.
Thank you. Perhaps if we turn to the vote now, the recommendation first, which is the paragraph 26, the executive notes performance in relation to council priorities as set out in this report, and the priority report set out at the appendix. As this is noting, do we need to take a named vote? I'm advised that we still do, and I do need a seconder, of course. Councillor Smart, thank you very much. So, Councillor Fuller. For. Councillor Hillard. For. Councillor Jordan. For. Councillor Smart. For. Councillor Stevens.
For.
Councillor Stubbings. For. And I'm for as well. 7 in favour. This time I do know the alphabet. We turn to paper C. Which is the Children's Services Capital Programme 2015-2016, and the paper before you seeks approval of the programme. Paragraph 3 sets out what the government has announced in terms of allocations, which has been put forward as capital grants, and that is also set out at paragraph 5. The focus of the current spending round continues along the previous year's lines. Specific grants have been reduced, allowing local authorities to determine their own local priorities, and the focus being on basic needs, school condition, and reduced allocation of schools involved in forming a capital. We also have an effect, as paragraph 6 reports, from the announcement of the Priority Schools Building Programme 2, which, as members will recall, we've mentioned previously, a number of schools on the island are benefiting from. Paragraphs 8 and 9 record the work that has been done to identify works that need to be done, and the fact of the involvement of my predecessor, Richard Priest, then Executive Member for Children's Services, in setting up a scheme process allowing community schools to bid for high priority condition works. And as I said, the sort of works that covers are set out there at paragraph 9, together with the process that was followed. I will mention one item specifically. I'm not going to go through everything. The schemes, for those interested, are outlined on pages C6, I think it is, and Appendix 1. On page 6 in particular, Barton Primary School is mentioned, as of course there's a project for that to be relocated to the downside middle school site. It's an important project, and there has been some concern raised, particularly by the board member, about how the project is to be realised, particularly due to the fact that the downside site is also going to be used for the location of some community facilities and spending of some community Section 106 money. There is a comment from Councillor Lumley, a written comment, which members have in their little bundle of additional papers before them, which I hope everyone has read. Councillor Lumley is not here, otherwise I would ask him to make comment. I'm not going to read through the entirety of what Councillor Lumley has set out, as much of it is history of the matter, but I think it is appropriate to relate his specific comments on the recommendations in the paper, which appear on the second side of the A4 sheet. And obviously there was some discussion at Tuesday's scrutiny meeting from which this follows. And Councillor Lumley says this: I'm entirely supportive of the project and the recommendations with one significant reservation. At paragraph 40, the initial feasibility study indicates project costs of 2.3 million. This is still Councillor Lumley's words. When this project was first broached, the figure being floated was about 1.5 million on a school/community spend ratio of 2 to 1. Both I and the officers of PAN together shudder at the thought of what the costs will be after a detailed and costed project appraisal. We wonder if the project is becoming grander than originally planned, ? Personally, with other community expectations for funding from the Section 106 community contribution, I would not want to see more than 650,000 spent from that fund. In conclusion, I hope the Executive will approve Paper C in principle, but the costings for the community element of the project can be reined back to a figure more acceptable to my community. That comment has been shared and raised with officers and is noted, and I can say that officers have undertaken to do their utmost to try and hold to that figure put forward by Councillor Lumley of 650,000. But I don't think beyond giving that undertaking requires any amendment of the paper. So I will therefore outline the recommendation, which appears at page C11, paragraph 62, 63, 64. To approve the schools capital programme, to recommend that 702,283 be approved as a balancing figure from the capital maintenance budget to support the Barton downside scheme, and it is also recommended that a commitment be given to the disposal of the Barton Primary and Early Years site for development with 100% of the capital receipt being made available to support this project. I'll look for a second and then invite any questions. Councillor Fuller. Any questions and comments from around the table? Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the additional preschool accommodation required in East Counts, I'm well aware that the two local members there are trying to engage with officers as to how to best do that in tandem, if you like, with other infrastructure issues in the town, such as the library and community centre. So can I just ask that obviously we remain mindful of that and how that can be best used in conjunction with available Section 106 money for community facilities and education that's available in that area. Thank you.
I'm sure that can be taken on. We don't have the relevant officer here this evening, but Mr. Coleman, I'm sure, will be happy to speak to you. Can you comment? Mr. Metcalfe will take that on as well. Thank you very much, John. There being no other comments from executive members, I see no hands showing from elsewhere in the room. If we go straight to the vote, I have outlined the recommendation. We have a seconder, so can I ask again, Councillor Fuller? For. Councillor Hillard? For. Councillor Jordan? For. Councillor Smart? For. Councillor Stevens? For. Councillor Stubbings? For. And I am for. Full House 7, that is passed. You will have the pleasure of me not speaking for a while in a moment. I only have one more page to go through. I feel I've been speaking far too much, but it's
Well, why doesn't someone else?
So, I'll keep this as brief as I can, but it is an important paper. Children's Social Care Performance Update, including the Department for Education Review of Services. I think the first paragraph of the report on page D1, it would be better phrased to say that this report aims to provide assurance on the progress in the improvements required following the Ofsted inspection. But hopefully that aim is achieved. As it does, the content of the paper reflects the important steps that have been taken in the ongoing journey to bring children's services up to a standard that they should be on the Isle of Wight. So this report, as I think I indicated previously, follows the Ofsted report from last November, and also the result, which has been formally reported to Executive and full Council before, but also notes the results, you'll see, of a DfE visit and inspection that took place in February. particularly Councillor Stowing's comment just now, going to go through the entire history of the matter. We have a little history lesson in the report, but rightly so, outlining what has been happening since 2012 and the Ofsted inspection that took place in November and December that year with subsequent reports. The outcomes are set out, the action plan that followed, and then the subsequent Ofsted report from the end of last year, and the work that is being done in light of that is also set out. The new item, element of this paper that I will specifically draw everyone's attention to appears paragraphs 45 to 48, which is noting that DFE inspection and a number of sessions that were held, again mostly in this chamber, where I and others were questioned and interviewed about improvements, how things were going, what was being done, what should be done, and that has led to the letter that appears in Appendix 2 on page D43, which is a heartening letter from David Laws and Edward Timpson, MPs, noting the improvements that have been made. The consideration, I suppose, that was taking place at that review was whether the direction that was placed upon us back in 2013 from central government should be lifted or could be lifted. And I think to summarise what should be said is that the view was taken that that direction could be lifted, but it would be more appropriate in terms of helping this authority to maintain the direction, but to amend it to recognise the journey that has been taken, but also to recognise work that still needs to be undertaken. We of course